Hello, welcome to the All or Nothing podcast. Our official sponsors are KR Couriers and Transport Limited. This is a Northwest based courier company delivering all across the UK. They can assist in home moves and removals to large, heavy and bulky items, collections and drop-offs. Fast, safe and reliable deliveries. Please get in touch for a free quote. You'll find all the information within the description. Thank you. Hello everybody and welcome to the All or Nothing podcast with myself, Billy Moore, and today's special guest is Tanner Hassan. Tanner, thanks for coming on. Special guest indeed, because me and Tanner, met briefly, let's say nearly 6 years ago in Essex. We won't say where it was, but it was a rehab. We won't mention the name. And I remember going in there, I was on driftwood, enough was enough, I needed help. And that was the place for me. That was a 12-step orientated fucking rehab. And,
couldn't wait to get the fucking in there.
Get the fucking in there. That. I remember. Right, so anyway, let's talk about you first and then we can talk about that. So tell us a little bit about yourself, T.
So yeah, I'm Tanner Hassan. I am a counsellor psychotherapist. What do you want to know about my professional background? Or you want to just know about who I am?
I want to know who you are.
All of it.
All of it.
Okay. Well, look, I'm half Irish, half Turkish Cypriot. I grew up in Essex in Southend, and I never thought this would be the line of work I'd be working in. Put it that way. That wasn't the plan. I have ADHD. I know that now, but I never really knew it then. I was just very hyperactive. I was always wanting to do stuff, and my parents always put me in extra curricular activities. You know what I mean? And my dad grew up in a very poor village in Cyprus. Grew up through the war, and came to England. My mum came from an Irish background with lots of brothers and sisters, and was very poor. So they both worked really hard to give us a life, really. And we were never spoilt, but we had everything we needed. Do you know what I mean? My dad worked his arse off, and my mum, and they thought it was a good idea to sort of send us to private school and all that kind of. I hated private school, but. They sent us there, and at that time in the 80s, they thought that was the way to go, right? So, and I really struggled. I was really good at sort of infant and junior school. I was like the top dog, and then went to senior school, and I was like bottom of the pile. I was still 4 foot, and I was like 4'9". I was tiny. Everyone was massive. Everyone was into sport, and I was like, oh fuck, I'm low in the pecking order, and but I was always a bit of a charmer with the girls. I was always a bit of a clown. I was always, kind of like that. I had that. That's just what I had. I wouldn't try to be that way. It was just the way it was. And, and I was always entertaining. So I was always performing. I just had this energy. So when I was on the stage, that was when I could let off. So I was destined to be a performer, really. So I was really good at drama, music, acting, that kind of stuff, singing. And that's pretty much where my trajectory of life was going. And I used to do that a lot. And I pursued that.
Yeah.
And I got close quite a few times. I got signed and it didn't happen. We got signed again. It didn't happen. And lots of auditions and lots of different stuff and did some TV stuff. And it was great. But by the time I was 19, I think that I used to hit the rejection really hard. And it was difficult because by that time I was in full swing of using by then. And all the party stuff for me, like the ecstasy generation and cocaine and uppers and downers and all sorts of stuff really. And I think it started to get in the way a little bit, and I continued through the darkness until I was about 24. I had drug-induced psychosis. I stopped performing. I was frightened to perform. So as a person, that light sort of dimmed out. So I was that type of person that was destined to go there, and I just didn't feel like I could go there, or I didn't want to work hard enough. I wanted it given to me in the end. There was like this entitlement notion that maybe I should just get given it. It was just a ridiculous viewpoint. I studied drama and music at college, but I never felt right at school. I never felt part of. I always felt less than or better than. Never felt part of. And I just always felt that something, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. When I went to college, it changed. Suddenly your teachers aren't a teacher, they're a lecturer, and you call them by their first name, and you can wear whatever you want.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, what I used to wear confused everyone because I didn't know who I was. So one day I walk in with like Ben Sherman shirt on, jeans and shoes. Next day I got a skateboard, chains, arse hanging out, fucking twisted spikes, thinking, you know, it was just, I would just be whoever you want me to be. I was just trying to fit in. I know that now, I laugh at it, but I was just trying to survive. I just wanted to fit in and be whoever you want me to be. And because I could act and put on that persona, I was able to mix in different circles and then hope those circles don't meet. Do you know what I mean? So, and that enabled me to walk around Mayfair giving it good afternoon, hello, and then being in sort of like the hood areas and
like Mr. Ben.
I guess so, yeah. Right. You know, so it was a very strange place up there, and so of course drugs just quietened that down, you know. And I loved smoking. I loved smoking weed. I loved it. It just. That's where it started. I mean, I started smoking cigarettes when I was about 12, and you know, you got to smoke properly, and you sort of spitting. And I've got this like a circle of spit around me, like one of the little kids, the whole time. And you know, and then by the time I was like 16, and I just baked the whole time, and learnt about, you know, bongs and flipping buckets and all sorts of stuff. And I just went through it all really. And you know, when I found ecstasy, I thought I'd arrived. I literally heard someone say on a podcast once that they thought they discovered a new universe. And that's how I felt. You know, it really just gave me this feeling. And I was with the right people, and I really felt connected, like I'd arrived. And
it's mad though, isn't it? Really, when you talk about, like, you know, the different effects that different drugs have on you.
Yeah.
Like for ecstasy, you know, I'm just identifying with you a little bit here.
Yeah.
For me, it just like opened a new world, like you said, a new universe.
Did yeah.
You know, I was like, people were hugging each other. People were really friendly and very overly.
Strangers as well,
yeah,
right?
You know, and it was just fucking mad.
It was mad,
you know.
Wasn't it? Yeah,
but that was the best, you know, time of like my young period of life.
Yes,
I agree. Me.
Yeah, and I'll share that with you. That was I don't have any regrets. You know, I know then all the sadness with Leah Betts and all the things that had gone on, but that weren't enough to stop me. And I'd heard stories that she was off on other drugs and other substances, and I think people just twisted that narrative to make it sound better for themselves to justify the using. I don't really know the answer of what happened to her, but that weren't enough to stop. I mean, I did have enough about me to say, right, well, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to take any other drugs, I'm not going to overwater myself, and I was a bit smart around that, and I would only take a few, and they were really strong then, so I wouldn't go overboard and go past 3 or 4, and then we'd go back to my mate's halls of residence, and we'd just smoke, get the guitar out, and just smoke until our head turned inside out, and it was all that kind of glorifying. I used to love all that, but unfortunately, I lost 2 stone in weight after doing that for a year. Looked really grey. I saw a picture of myself, and the vanity said, "Okay, you need to put that to bed," and so I just put it to bed. Just stop doing it. But then, you know, it's just progressive, and I believe that when I found cocaine, I chased it like it was that pill rush. I was trying to get that same feeling, and it don't work in that same way with that gear.
No.
And I was a monster when it came to that. That was when I started to realise my mates used to call me a fiend. I just couldn't stop. Once I started, I'd have it in my pocket. I'd panic and think, what if I run out? So I try and use everybody else's gear and keep mine, and just deny I didn't have any. I was like everything you could imagine, right? And I just remember just progressing, just keep going, and then eventually I used to go to sleep, used to wake up, used to go to work, used not to go to work, just could not stop using. And I used to justify it because I was like, well, I don't use that every day, and I don't use that every day, but I was using something every day, you know? Fucking loads of codeine, that was out of control. Justification, having to go to different pharmacists, blagging doctors to get the 30 over 500s, and like sort of wean down with the 8 milligrams and 16 32s, and just proper science around it, going to different pharmacies, collecting them. It just got out of control. And that's when I realised I got to that point where I actually can't stop. And it was relationships were being destroyed. You know, ultimatums were being made, and I couldn't even stop for like a partner. You know, that fear of no, I can't. Why can't I do both? And I thought nobody really knew. You know, parents knew. I lied. I didn't wash in the end. I mean, the reality is, let's keep it real. I didn't wash in the end. I had holes in my shoes. I used to, in the end, I used to work in the nightclub industry after I went through my rejection and different jobs. I've done every job you can imagine, and in the nightclub industry, I wouldn't spend any money on anything that you should be wearing. You know, I had an allowance and stuff, but didn't get any shoes. And my shoes were curling, holes in them. I used to walk in the toilets on my heels so the piss wouldn't go in my fucking shoes because of all that money for gear. And the illusion that I'm not on the street, or the illusion that I'm not in a prison cell, or I'm not jacking up in an alleyway. You know, that kind of society bullshit view that used to come out, justified, and that kept me out. It kept me sick, kept me out there for a long time because I thought I genuinely wasn't an addict because I pay tax. That's an honest viewpoint. I pay tax. I'm an addict. What are you talking about? I go to work. It's like, yeah, forget that you're going to work and you've got no money at the end of it because you're robbing Pete to pay Paul, and I can have an advance, and then you're paying everyone off, and debt and all that stuff, really. So it did get very progressive until and at 24 I had drug-induced psychosis. I didn't want to live anymore. I was so paranoid that all of that shit. I get chills when I think about how dark that time was. I put myself in a lot of dangerous situations, and I shouldn't be here. The situations I put myself in, and places I put myself in, and situations where I didn't even know if it was real or not. That's a horrible feeling. And do you know what the fucked up thing is about that? When you get to that point where you're not sure if reality is actually real or not, if it is reality, that wasn't enough to stop me still. So when I was convinced that guy was going to stab me, I don't, to this day, I don't know, did he not? Did that actually happen? Was that real?
I've had that experience where it's quite like, it's, you don't know, you can't separate reality from fantasy. And you know, I for the life of me, right, I must have been up for days on crack cocaine, right, and I'm out early hours in the morning scoring or whatever I was doing, and I believed, I looked behind because I'm sure someone was following me. In my head, someone was following, and I saw them, right, but it wasn't one person. It was the whole of Admiral Street police station hiding behind the lamppost, right, right. It was one lamppost, and every time I looked, I just seen Bobby's hats, right? And then I look in the door, go, oh, what the fuck, what's going on?
It's horrible. That.
Where did that to me? I know it was, now it's definitely not real, but then it was real.
It's real.
They follow me, right? They want to know where I'm scoring, they want to know who I'm getting it off. And so I know how you know, the Yets, that was what reminded me of, like the Yets. You know, they're Yets, you know, where you're going. And as long as it's not bad as that, I'm not going to go to them lengths. I won't be in the gutter, but when I'm in the gutter, you know, there's always going to be someone lower. You know, the justifying, the mineralising the law.
I never said I would use certain drugs anyway, and then I did. Like the amount of compelling stories of justified reasons why I wouldn't, I was like, that makes sense. And then all of a sudden I'm doing it. It's like, oh, you just forgot about your values and your viewpoint that you had. And so really that kind of, I had to get out of that game, you know, and I didn't really like drinking either, really. I didn't really drink. I used to get drunk really quick. It's called me Taz the Fiver. I used to get drunk on a fiver, but in the end I couldn't get drunk. Drinking to blackout, not remembering, couldn't get that feeling. Stopped using, continued drinking, that got worse. I was just a mess. And I was just watching everybody. I felt like I still had enough to say, oh, no, I'm all right. You know, that film, you know, do you remember the film The Business? Well, no, it's not The Business. It's Dan and Dyer, but it's Human Traffic, and they're looking in the mirror. And it's like, no, you're all right, mate. No, you're all right. You're all right. I used to say that all the time, trying to convince yourself. You know what I mean? Like,
I used to go to the chemist, right, to pick up my methadone, right, and there was this bear behind the counter saving up, and you know, I thought I fucking looked well in it. I was in with a chance with this girl, right? I used to go in and try and sweet talk her and charm her and, you know, get a number. And I was sweating, right? My hair was stuck to my face, literally. I don't know, I used to have a shit in my mouth with a fan, just blowing it. And I didn't realise that was just the anxiety, you know, with the drugs. But I thought I was fucking gorgeous, and I was, you know, just... and then, you know, you're looking, I've got pictures on my fucking phone, right, that tell a different story, you know. It's like, and I showed it to the lads downstairs, and they went, that's not you. Mate, it is, you know. I can't believe that was me. But totally understand where, you know, you think that you're okay,
and you're not okay, and you think no one knows. Nobody knows, you're all right. Everybody knew. I was so thin, I looked like a triangle, right, because I had shoulder pads in my suit jacket. So I looked like a fucking triangle, right? The belt had extra holes in the belt. I tied my belt so tight that the zip used to fold over. That's how thin I was.
You must have looked like shutting off fucking Dallas.
Mate, I don't know what. I used to think I looked good. I've seen pictures and I just looked gaunt, grey, pale, looked like I was dying. But I was dying inside, and I guess what kept me going is the illusion again, especially with the nightclub industry, is that it's all smoke and mirrors in that industry. If you want to hide in it, because the lights are off, the music's flowing, the vibe is good, everybody's there, everyone's drinking, getting off their nut.
It's all in Essex this way, yeah. So you
yeah,
there's a lot going on back then. How old are you now?
I'm 42.
Yeah,
42
so you
now.
you had the likes of what's his name?
For me, it was all garage and drum and bass back then. For me, Fabric Farringdon every Friday night, without fail. But we had a lot of garage nights and a lot of drum and bass, a lot of hard house nights, and just all that kind of stuff, really. And and I loved it. I had a really good time. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy it. I had a really good time, but I had to clean up my act. I mean, I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but I remember I didn't want to leave the business, and I got headhunted to be a general manager of a nightclub. It was renowned to being a drug club, and they didn't even have a drug safe. So yeah, if they catch drugs of you, the doormen are keeping that. You know, it's being dished out. And I even phoned a 6 months clean, and I was, I'm going to do it properly. And I did it on resentment. I kid you not. I thought, if I can't fucking use, no one's going to use. I sprayed every little bit with the WD-40 in the toilets. I changed the seats. There was no toilet seats. I made it look nice, and phoned up the police and said, we've got a drug safe. And they were like, was this the same club? I was like, yeah. And I remember there was a little hatch in this little office, and I sort of opened the hatch, and this fucking massive bag of cocaine was sitting there, and oh my head, that was a moment of no one will know, no one will know, no one will know. That's what kept going through my head. No one will know. And I was sweating, the anxiety, and I was like, yeah, but you'll know. And I was like, no, it's all right. I just flushed it down the toilet and had a panic attack. Just got rid of it. I was thinking, wow, man, that threw me. And luckily that got taken away from me, that job, and that was the best thing it ever did, really.
Did you ever come across Carlton Leach on your travels?
Say that again.
Carlton Leach.
What about him?
Did you ever come across him?
No, I'm too young. I'm too young. Don't get me wrong. My head would, I'm fascinated by all of that, being from that area. And
I met Carlton. We've done a live podcast with Carlton. He was, because that's what he described his relationship with ecstasy was like. It was just fucking opening.
Yeah, well, they brought it there. They kick-started it all off, and
Marvin Herbert, they were all kind of in there.
And I never come across any of those type of people. And
now you're lucky, to be fair, because they were a bit vicious back then.
And I'm not that type of guy, and I didn't really like people like that, because for me, I need to know who you are, even to this day, right? Yeah. If you're quite a closed, cut-off character, I struggle, because it matters to me that I know who you really are. So I like people that wear their heart on their sleeve and really open. That makes me feel better. I can see you. Yeah. So I wasn't really that type of person. I'm not a guy that wants to go around fighting, punching everyone, or causing ruckuses.
Conflict was definitely not on the cards.
Definitely not on the cards for me. I'd definitely avoid that at all costs. I mean, my drug dealers were friendly drug dealers. I had a drug dealer once that used to say, no, I can't sell anymore. I think you've had enough. I mean, can you imagine, right? Yeah. So, it's bad, number one, when the drug dealer's saying you, I think you've had enough.
I've had that, Michelle, to be fair.
Do you know what I mean? And number two, just those sort of types, really. And but again, those are those I started putting myself in those dodgy places, and I was like, I looked out of place. I just wasn't, because it was all that mattered was getting more. But
what's interesting about you, Tanner, right, is that it just goes to show that you don't have to come from an austere background. You don't have to come from a background which is being like really difficult. Like for myself, people go, I'm blaming it on the environment I was brought up in, or the household that I lived in, and my dad battered me, and that's no, for me, right, there was a lot of contributing factors. I always explain that there was a lot of contributing factors that led me or influenced me to take drugs, right? But ultimately I had the choice. We have that choice, but years ago I believe that choices were very limited. We weren't, there wasn't the interventions that we've got today, right? So back then there was no interventions in a point, and like you said, wanting to fit in, wanting to be a part of something, wanting to be accepted, that was like the norm for me, to be a part of something, because I didn't feel like I fitted in my own household. But you've come from a positive background.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there was some, while certain people are alive, I will never talk about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
so there was things that kind of
there were things that went down
that
I can't ever talk about while they're alive. For me, it doesn't feel right, because I talk about my stuff, but I seen my fair stuff. I went through some things.
And I say the same,
you know?
Yeah, I say the same, because my dad, when he passed away, obviously, we made, his amends at the end. But for me, the damage was already done, but it was great to have those moments and try and learn a little bit about him. But yeah, I don't think I'd be talking about him if he was still alive, to be fair.
Right, and so there was enough, I was showing a lot of love in my house, and they came, they raised us right, but there was also other stuff. But that's not the reason. But I think I was a little shit. I was like a liar, compulsive liar. Do you know what I used to write? I spent a lot of my young years writing lines. I must not lie. I must not lie. I must not lie. I'm telling you.
Why do you think you done that? Because that's.
But
you think it was fear?
I guess so. I've not really dug too deep into it. I kind of forgot it. I know reacquainted with it recently because.
Did you used to get threats? Like someone used to say to you or your family members, "Oh, stop lying. We know you're lying."
Yeah.
And you just
all the time. I wore pajamas.
Yeah.
Right. With this piece of paper on it saying, "Do not talk to me. I am a liar." And I asked my mum, I said, "Why did you do it?" She goes, I had nothing. I didn't know what else to do. You just didn't listen. You were just lying. My dad said to me, it was for the payoff, right? Yeah. So when the Sega Master System came out, right, I really wanted that. My dad said, we used to get these report cards. Right? I've gone to this fucking private school, and he's like, my dad said to me, "Don't you ever fake my signature. I will break your hands." I was like, "No worries, Dad. No, I ain't gonna do that. Of course I fucking did that. I was just rubbing it out, making it all dirty, rubbing it in the dirt, trying to get it up to 70% and that. Got it there, and I come in, I go, my mum used to tell me, she tells me that I used to say to them, like, I've done so well at school that they're giving me extra work to do. Right, all this homework. It's because I hadn't done any of my homework and I'm behind, so I'm just shit. And we got the Master System, and someone found out, and one of the parents' mum was going to grass me up. And this is fear, right? She says to me, I think I'm about 8 or 9, right? She went, I know what you're doing. So question her motive first of all. What was she on about? And she said, if you don't come clean to your parents, I'm going to tell them. And those are the days where there's no mobile phones, right? So it's that phone. Yeah. She said, one day I'm going to call, and you won't know it's me, but if you don't tell, I'm going to tell. So every time the fucking phone rang, I'll get it. So I'm running to get the phone. Hello. And it was like never the person. And one day I missed it. It was that person who grasped me up, and it was just horrendous. And that fear. I mean, I ran into lots of problems at school. I was always different. I looked different, even just visibly different. Like I was really short. I had massive big glasses. I was the only brown kid in my class, and people used to use that against me at this senior school. And I had a really tough time adjusting, really. And it was more like emotional bullying and verbal. It was never really physical, but I'd bite. I was like a little Jack Russell. Right? I'd give them the reaction they wanted. I don't really think deep down they were racist, but they're just going to use. If you're fat, they're going to call you a fat cunt. Doesn't mean you're fattest, right? It was just a way to boil my piss. That's what they were trying to do, and they succeeded, and they really got in my head. And I lashed out one day. I'd lost the plot, and I gave this kid such a punch that the science teacher heard it and kicked me out. And anyway, I got suspended. I called a teacher a cunt, I think, or something like that. And I was sitting in the office, and they had the cane at that school. Yeah. And he said, "Why shouldn't you get the cane?" And I just braved it and said, "Listen, my dad's the only one who disciplines me. If you cane me, he will beat the living shit out of you," right? This is how I'm speaking to him. Right, outside. So I'm outside. And then it dawns on me, my parents are going to find out what's happened. I'm in trouble here. And the deputy goes, "Can you take this down to the CDT department, this book?" I went, "Yeah, no problem." Took it down, passed by the front gate. And in that split second, I ran. I legged it. And for hours and hours, I just ran away. Mm. Do you know what? At 12 years old, what the motive was? Very calculated. The motive was, if I run away, my parents will be so concerned that I run away that they'll forget about all that because they'll be so glad to have me back. So I went with it. And then the fear crept in. I felt alone. I felt terrified. And then I was genuinely frightened at 12. And as you call them, the fucking busies came. Yeah. Right? And they were like, I was trying to hide my school badge and that, and then when they got me, put me in the back, and it paid off. You know, the parents were really concerned, and nothing was ever mentioned. And I've told them that years later, and they said, "You're a little shit." You know, I was difficult.
So you used that as a manipulation.
I used that. It was manipulative. Thank you. Yeah, I was manipulative, and I guess I sort of learnt sort of those sort of things as I grew up. Yeah. And you know, I had my fair share of shit, but I dished it out. You know, I was mouthy. I was a mouth kid, but just couldn't back it up. So these are the things that would happen, right? And I guess I was frustrated at that as well.
Yeah.
That I wanted to be like the Bruce Lee and kick the shit out of anyone that come near me, but I just had the mouth but couldn't back it up, and so I'd find other people who would back me up and do it for me, if you like. And so it was. I don't know why I'm talking about my childhood. I like how we don't plan stuff, we just talk. Yeah. But this is what's come up, and you know, that these are the things that I learned as I grew up. And the main point I tell you all that is because I learned to be somebody else. I was very good at wearing the masks, the guises, you know, the different disguises that we have. And I learned that. And I was very good at it until I weren't good at it anymore. And I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, the point is that we've had these, like, you know, obviously you've heard the adverse childhood experiences, and that's what, like, fucking builds us in the end, innit? You know, it's like you get to a point where I know from, like, my younger years, it kind of like, this is who it became because of what happened.
Yeah.
You know, and all the trauma and all the experiences and the way I had to kind of get through life. And you know, I am who I am today because I've had to grow up in my adulthood. For me, I couldn't grow up as a child, you know, because it was just living in fear. So I grew up, you know, in me late 20s to early 30s, you know, bit by bit. Sometimes it, you know, I'd revert back to type.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big things that resonate with me around my dad, for example, is I felt less than him.
Yeah.
I always felt like I could never measure up. Because when I listened to my dad's stories, you know, at 17 when he came to this country from war, you know, in Cyprus, and the stuff that he'd seen, you know, him and his dad lined up at the cinema ready to be gunned down, and his dad telling him, when I tell you got to run for the hills, through the back gate, through the back door, and just keep running. And, you know, my dad would share stories that he'd hear that sound on war movies, like, and he gets anxiety thinking about it now because he thinks it's me next. You know, I never had to taste any of that, thank God, and I hope I never do. And when he had an opportunity to come, and he didn't fuck about. He actually made something of himself. All his mates would earn more money, but they were still working in the kebab shops. They were still drugs, womenizing, all the gambling. He had a plan. He had a vision, and he was like, "Nah, I'm settling down, and I'm going to save all my money. I'm going to have a family, and that's what I'm going to do and raise my kids." Yeah. And I almost felt like I let him down, like I could never measure up, and I felt really less than, and that broke my heart, you know, and that kept me in the shame. That kept me in the guilt. It kept me in that illness, you know, that I never felt like I could be like him. And if I could be half the man that he is, I'd be all right. But you know what my parents say to me today? Don't worry about me anymore. They've actually said it to me. I don't worry about you anymore. And that's beautiful. Yeah, it took a long graft to get there, but they don't worry about me anymore. And at 24, I went and cleaned up. You know, it was really important.
It reminds me really what you've just said about your dad there, because I spoke to a friend of mine. He's on the firm, and he's been about for a few years, quite a long time. And he said that when his dad was dying, and he was at his dad's side on his deathbed, he said his dad said to him, "Listen, son, right, there's many men as good as you, right, but there's none better." Right? And I thought, you know, that was just, you know, his final words. You know, and it's like, fucking hell, you know, you come up with something at the end, you know, and that's that. And he's never forgot it. And he said it to me. He said, "Bill, there's many men as good as you, but there's none better." He said, you know, value yourself, you know what I mean? Because they will be as good. But yeah, it's trying to compete, like you say, you know, you're trying to compete with. Yeah. Like my dad, I don't know, I was just probably like screaming for, you know, acknowledgement. Bit of, like, just, "Oh, this is my son," instead of fucking, you know, son of mine. I felt like a Phil Collins fucking LP. You know what I mean? Like it was a song, you know, someone else's. So yeah,
I love hearing stories like that, because that's the other scale, and yet the other viewpoint is my dad would be going, "This is my son," and I feel like I don't measure up. So it's going to get you. It doesn't really matter how the angle is. And that's really fascinating, isn't it? That was your view and that's your experience, and yet I still experience
the diversity of two people, you know, talking about shared experiences and, you know, different pathways, but, you know, ultimately ending up in those dark places and having to fucking get your shit together. But you became, right, really successful, right, because we'll go forward on that now.
We'll get to the recovery bit, and that's how.
So for me, right, I like I said at the beginning, I met you when I went to a treatment centre. I was on my fucking last legs. You know, I was in a really bad way. Nick sitting in the dirt next to his dad. He's off the camera, but I remember Nick saying to me, you know, you are the fucking real deal, Bill. Right? You're in here, you know, every blue moon we get someone like you who's been through it. Because in my head, I was thinking, these are all getting the fucking asses right with £50 notes. They've got a few quid wrapped around them. I turned up, right? Like, I didn't even have the money to pay for this. It was paid by someone else, and I was grateful for that. But then I realised it was coming out of my money anyway. But it did. And then you said, and I remember you saying I was lying curled up in a ball, rattling. You know, for people who don't know what rattling is, it's like you're withdrawing, you're detoxing, but I was in a fucking terrible state. And no matter what medication I was getting, you know, I needed more and more just to get a balance. And it wasn't working. You know, day after the day after, it wasn't working. And you said, fucking hell, Bill. When I got to that balance, you said we were getting that bad that we felt that we needed to get you a bit of gear. And I always remember that. I thought, fucking hell.
I mean, obviously, just to be clear, we wouldn't have got that.
We wouldn't.
Just want to clear that up.
We know that.
But just want to clear that up.
You know,
but you were that bad.
It just goes to show, doesn't it, that like.
But was it because you minimised? Because obviously the doctor has to assess you. So did you underplay how much you were using? Because the doctor can only go on what you're.
No, I think what it was, I'd never actually been on like. Was Subutex at the time. That was the detox of
Subutex.
I've never been on Subutex. I was fucking drinking loads of meth and I was taking loads of codeine phosphate on top of like the heroin I was using and other drugs, you know, whether it was tramadol, everything and anything, right? I was stockpiling as well. Because of that cancer, I was getting medication left, right and centre, diases, valleys, the lot. So when I'm going to see a doctor, I'm just telling him, you know, me heroin use.
Yeah.
Not like letting them know about like the added fucking, you know, the added opiate-based drugs that I'm fucking including in my daily usage. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it was. I remember right going down these stairs for the first time, right, getting a bit of breakfast, and it was all posh. There was blueberries, like there was strawberries, right. I was like, fucking hell. And like, oh, this is fucking nice, isn't it? And I remember like going into this smoking shed after I just ate these blueberries with this bit of yogurt and this oatmeal, muesli, right? Thinking I've had a bit of a posh brekkie there. I'm going to go be on the healthy one. Sitting there amongst these people that I'd never met before. They were all from different areas and different backgrounds. And one of them gave me a cigarette because I had none. Right, I'm smoking a cigarette. Right, fucking next thing it was projectile fucking vomit. I remember just blue. It was just blueberries everywhere. It's just. I remember everybody, you fucking dirty bastard, you smackhead. Don't call me a smackhead. And I was like, the cheeky cunt. Yeah. He had the vest on, like a gym vest or something. And I was like, fucking smackheads. But I don't know. I was apologetic at the time. But fucking hell. You know, I'm in a fucking state here.
You was unwell, mate.
I was unwell.
Your knuckles, your hands were so swollen. Yeah. And so red.
I don't even know.
I remember it. They were huge. It was like you were wearing boxing gloves, and they was your real hands. Yeah. And because I was working in a private treatment. Yeah. And of course, you know, me and my mate were talking about this on the way here about how it's changed. I'm sure we'll get onto that a bit later on. But because it's private, the reality is you were seeing a lot more alcohol detoxes. Yeah. You know, you were seeing a lot of city boys and girls coming from the cocaines and bits and pieces. People from overseas that don't want, you know, all that kind of stuff. But heroin, when someone's using heroin, like really, the reality is having a spare 12 grand lying around is going to be pretty slim unless family or, you know, or you had a real successful business or whatever. So they were few and far between. But what we found is that changed, and people were scrimping and scraping to get their loved ones into treatment. And so we did see a lot of opiate medication as well. That become massive. So you few and far between. And let me tell you, most of the times, those that were coming in on those particular substances were fucking nightmares. Yeah. They're the ones that get the dealers popping up, you know, in a taxi, trying to chuck stuff through the window. But your team are really good. And that's why having in recovery staff members isn't essential, but it's a good mix to have. And we do you remember Paul, night staff worker Paul? He'd smell it out. He'd know, he'd go, He'll go, room
Mate,
number
right,
5, he's using number 6.
I might as well own this because you're going to read about it anyway, right? You're going to read about it
It's
anyway.
in the book, right?
It's in the book, Tanner, right? There was a night in Paul, right? I remember Paul, night staff, right? Where was he from? He was probably like Bournemouth, just sportsman with the...
He's from Norfolk. He's from a travelling background.
But he was so I remember, right? I've come out in the back garden, right? And this kid's in the seat and he says he's got a few quid cash, right? So he wants a bevy, and I'm saying, okay, I could do the fucking bevy. You know, I haven't got a problem with the ale. And I remember climbing over the fence, right, up the back garden. It was about half 8, fucking going down that hill into the village. Going into the village shop, panicking, right? Grabbing him a bottle of rum, me a bottle of brandy, right? The coke. I'm fucking flying back up the hill. Out of breath, gashing me lungs are really tight, thinking I'm going to get caught. Fucking hell. Gets over, manages to get in. Eyes the ale behind this little, like, fucking shed thing.
The gym, I know. Yeah. That's where they started.
That's it. They had it there, right? That's because that's where the gate was. And then I sat down and I spoke to someone. And someone's fucking said something. They blew me up. They knew I'd been round. But he hadn't had nothing to drink at the time. And Paul came over. It was just, we need to breathalyse your bill. We had a little bit of information. I was like, what? Fucking breath? What for? Come on. You're joking, aren't you? But I knew it was cool, right? So I knew it was flying. So we breathalyzed me. Fucking passed it with flying colours. This other kid, this Brummy kid, is shit himself, right? Didn't want his bevy, right? Even though we'd pay for it. It was just Joe. I ended up sitting in my room with 2 bottles. Fuck it. I fucking drink the fucking brandy, and then the next day I drank the rum as well. So, but then on the 23rd of September 2017, when I finished all my medication, I thought, that's it, you've got to surrender now, and that's it, don't take nothing, just be grateful you never got caught. I have now, but never got caught at that time, and I actually like fucking I even had the phone. I remember
I knew you had a phone. I
remember talking on the phone, right? And I come on top, this night staff bird walked in the room, just popped her head, hi, you okay? And I made out, I was talking to myself, and he had like fucking proper like problems. But
we couldn't find that phone, and you denied it because we talked about it at handover. He's got another phone, and you denied it, and we couldn't find it. Yeah. Where did you hide it? I need to know. I gotta know.
I just did it under like the drawers, lifted the drawers up and put it under the whole unit, the big wardrobe. Boom, I had to push it right up and just stick it under. There was a little gap. Gets it in there.
Oh, you're going to my resentment list. Yeah. Fucking hell, I knew it. I knew you had it.
I had the phone. There you go.
So hold on. So let me get this straight. So you were drinking in rehab.
I was drinking.
So I better not tell anyone that I was the manager of that rehab because that looks like I failed miserably. So you were drinking in that rehab. You was had a phone in that rehab. Fucking hell.
And then I got kicked out after like 6 weeks because of
why'd they kick you out?
I'll tell you why they kicked me out, because I'd been on that many warnings by yourselves, right? You said to me, look, Bill, you're on your last warning, right? And I got to a point where, right, I'm flying now, right? I'm clean. I had a couple of weeks under my belt. I felt a little bit like I knew what I was going to, I knew where I was going now. I knew that all I needed to do was get through this in a safe place, get out and crack on with the meetings, right? Don't go to the Mackies after this meeting, because you used to go to these meetings.
That's right.
You're on the bus with these other clients. Just get straight to meeting and stay back. Taxi thing. Everyone in the taxi going, we'll go to Mackey's. I'm going, we can't, Wow. We're going to Mackey's. What's it got to do with you? Look, I'm on a last warning. You aren't, right? So let's just go back in case it comes bangers. Because I didn't want to get kicked out. Then I ended up arguing with someone. He said, we're going to lock horns. And I lost it. Thinking, I'll fucking smash your head in. And I remember saying to him in the taxi,
referred to removing his windpipe.
Yeah.
Please continue.
I said I was going to rip your fucking windpipe out.
That's it, yeah.
With my bare hands.
That's
and
the one.
Fucking something else.
Yeah,
pull your skeleton
that
out.
Did it, didn't it? That did it.
Yeah, and that was a bad move, really.
Yeah.
Because everyone was like in earshot, and it kind of
terrified everyone.
Yeah, it was intimidating, and I didn't mean to, but anyway.
And no one knows whether you're going to do anything, because no one really knows you. So professionally, they got CQC, they got policies, they got procedures, they got processes, and if they don't, and then you end up ripping his windpipe out, fucked. So they have to follow that. As I said to you, because it wasn't containable and we couldn't make it work, you had no choice but to go.
And then I got sent home that day by yourself, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. And the thing is, what I want to point out when you talk about that Mackey's, and people might be listening thinking, well, it's a bit much. Like, well, who cares if they go to Mackey's or not? And people used to really moan about the trivial stuff they would consider trivial, but it's not the big mouse It's not the elephant shit that trips people up sometimes. It's the mouse shit, right? It's the little things.
Yeah.
And these were little nuggets of boundaries and structure and discipline, and not my way or the highway. I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
What we're trying to teach people in treatment was that, you know what, you can have your life back after 28 days. It's nothing. Just comply, do what we're setting out, and it will do you well for your recovery. If you're holding the secret, knowing that someone's got drink and got drugs in there, you're not a grass if you talk about it in here. You're saving your ass because you're holding that secret. That's going to come out, and that makes you sick. And I've watched it poison the group. I've seen so much stuff where it poisons the group because someone's holding the secret. Yeah. And that replicates your real life out there, and it's really difficult. So that little swerve off to Mackey's, today it's that, tomorrow it's swerve a piss test, get the neighbour to piss in a piss pot, or it's something even bigger, right? And so it's about really trying to re-educate the mind to try and change that way of thinking that no one will know. Remember when I was sitting there with that Coke in the club, no one will know. Well, I will know. And it's about really getting rigorous honesty, getting gut level honest to stand a chance. And that was the deal. That was what was drummed into me and drummed into loads of people that got into recovery and that work in that field. And that's what we were trying to
promote to
you guys, because we know. And, it was a shame when you left. But, and I didn't go to rehab. I wasn't fortunate enough to go to rehab. But I did it through the rooms, and
I think to be fair to yourselves and that, I did have enough chances. I was very reluctant to do a lot of things. I thought all I needed to do was just stay fucking clean. And that's all I wanted. And the reality was, it was going to come to an end either way, and managed.
Yeah, but you're asking someone to change their whole life in 28 days. It's just not reality.
It's not, is it?
It's really teaching people not to go and pick up, right? Being the arsehole bit, and the arsehole bits about us is going to take time in the living out there, which is if we give you the tools and you follow the path that we give you when you go out there, you'll stand a chance to work on that bit. So really for me, in treatment, it's literally, I must not use, I cannot use, I don't need to use, using will not make my life better. And it's really learning those skills, really. Everything else you can't tackle in 28 days. You can't tackle the sex addiction that might come up because now suddenly they want to feel good from the members of the opposite sex, or eating loads of food, or buying loads of shopping. All that stuff comes afterwards. You can't tackle everything in there. And sometimes I felt that that some individuals would want to tackle all that. It's just like, look, it's just overload. You're asking someone like yourself who'd been using as long as you had, coming in, clucking, just getting clean, and then change everything. You've got to hold on to a little bit of stuff. You're going to be reluctant.
I tell you what as well, right? And you've got to understand this, and I think Nick and yourself would know this. When I was in there, I get because I've had this phone, by the way, I get a phone call saying that from my mum, saying that the police have been at the house with a warrant for my arrest, right? I'm thinking, oh, you're fucking joking, aren't you? What's going on here? These are the consequences of my actions whilst I'm in the grip of addiction. So I'm in this treatment centre, I'm safe and clean. I'm thinking they're going to fucking arrest me at the end, or they're going to come to the treatment centre, they're going to take me away. And it was like, all this was going on. And I didn't know whether I was coming or going.
Yeah.
I had all that fear. And I didn't want to use. And in the end, when you did let me, obviously, when I did have to go and I had to get a taxi, I just got a taxi straight back to Liverpool. I had a little bit of money left. I got a taxi that cost me a few £100. Got home. Thought that's money well spent. When I stayed at a friend's who was in recovery, he put me up in his flat, and that was it. Went to court after being arrested, by the way. Didn't get arrested at the rehab. And then goes to prison clean, and stay clean. And
that was your secondary.
Yeah, that was
secondary treatment. Yeah.
But you know what, right? It was
G-wing secondary treatment done.
That was just like because when it's last chance saloon. When people talk about we've had enough and we should end it, right? And I used to think, okay, right, if you want to get clean, you'll get clean any fucking way, right? If it's in a skip, in a back entry, in some social housing, even a prison, you'll stay if you really, really want it. And I push this to people, right? When you've had enough, right, and I've had to claw myself back out of this hole, and then just build myself back up from all the shame and all the guilt, and just carry on moving forward. My life now, from 6 years ago, where I turned up in a pair of Birds flip-flops, and a hoodie that was too big for me, that didn't belong to me as well, right? To go into prison, to have a nothing to lose in my house, my car, my job, the lot, right? To where I am today with a loving family, you know.
Amazing, isn't
it? I wake up and I haven't got a fucking worry about. I'm just worried about whether, you know, the usual fucking, like, have I got clean fucking socks, or is there anything irons, or do you know what I mean? It's not what it was.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not, like you said, the hygiene's not, I'm not like fucking no toothpaste to brush my teeth to fucking get a wash, you know, or I'm running fucking unmanageable around the streets at 3 o'clock in the morning because I'm full of shame and I don't want no one to see me, so I'm hiding in the fucking shadows. That doesn't happen no more, you know.
That's great. And you've done well to stay clean in prison, because I worked in prison for a short time, and I worked on a detox wing, and I used to have people begging me, please get me off this wing, I want to get clean. On a detox wing. What the fuck? On a detox wing.
They're the worst. They're the worst.
And they are begging me to get them off this wing. I was thinking, what is going on? Like, so anyway, so I was like saying to the screws and that, why can't we get the dogs in like twice a day and that? And he was like, oh no, we can't do that. I said, why? He went, well, because that would alert the prison that there's a drug problem. I went, but there is a drug problem. And he went, yeah, but prison can't acknowledge that. I said, well, why not? And he went, because that will affect funding. I was like, fuck it. And that's the day. That was the day I went, you know what, I'm done. I can't work in this. What we were doing was undoing it. I won't say the name of the prison, because you have to sign a little contract when you work in there that you're never allowed to talk about it. So if I don't say the prison, then I'm all right. But that got me. I got angry at that, because I started working in the field then. And I mean, I know we've bypassed a lot of stuff, but to rewind back a little bit, like you know, you turned your life around at 24 when I finally got clean. You know, I went to sort of support groups and various different things, and a day become another day, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And I had to come out of the nightclub industry. I had no idea what I was going to do for work, and I sort of fell into Talk to Frank. Remember Talk to Frank? Drug and alcohol awareness. I sort of fell into that. I was doing promotions, giving out leaflets in like Superdrug and like Asda's, like for Robinson's Juice. It was really, I felt old. All these young out of work actors, and I felt like a granddad in comparison, really. And I fell into this Frank one, and I went for the interview. I was the only one who turned up in a suit. Everyone was in jeans and t-shirt. I turned up in a suit, and but they liked that. That was good. And then I thought, maybe they're in recovery. Maybe I'll just, you know,
use the lingo.
Yeah, and be honest. Fucking the poor lady was crying at the end of it. I thought, oh no, I've overshared. I need to like contain it, lock it down again. And then I felt all vulnerable, and I was like, oh, fucked it. So I left, and they called me 20 minutes later and said, no, that you're who we want. And I was like, all right. And it was really boring. We were just giving out leaflets to kids at the youth at schools, and I was like, this is fucking shit. I want to talk to them like these are people. So we started engaging, and I sort of made it my own, and they just let me run. And I started creating workshops, and it was just brilliant. I met loads of youth workers in the area. I worked up here. Now I've been here for like 14, 15 years, and was in like Kirby, was in the Wirral, went to Birkenhead, went everywhere, and across the whole of the country for 3 years. And then, and I stayed clean. I went to support groups all round and met so many people. And sideline, that's why I love the Scousers. My early recovery is because of Scousers. Love them. And I was saying to Nick on the way here, why? It's the Scousers are so animated. The ones I've met, they're very animated. Now I'm quite animated. Being, you know, Cypriot and fucking Irish, I'm animated as fuck, right? So to be around a Scouser and that passion, to me, that's like, I vibe off that. And just their passion and zest for recovery really got me going. And there was a where to find support groups. And no matter where I was, which city I was in, there was always a Scouser to meet me, to take me to a meeting. It was all about recovery, Taz. We'll get you to that meeting, mate. Don't you fucking worry, son. Keep going, call the number. I was like, all right. And so they always had a close place in my heart, right? And after that time, I went and worked at a local drug and alcohol service in the community. I had no qualifications, just my experience. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to get everybody in recovery, and I was telling them, well, I'm clean. And I still was making it about me. And one day, this client sat there and went, well, good for fucking you. And just looked at me like he wanted to kill me. And I was like, oh, that's not happened before. And that was the day I realised, you're making it about you. And actually, this is where people who are not in recovery working in the field are better there, because they're not making it about them. And so I had to learn. I didn't know. I got it all wrong. I'd shout at you, tell the worker to fuck off, fuck you. I was in meetings being like disciplined. I was like, oh no, or I'd be a bit too flirty, and so I was like, well, that's harassment. I was like, what do you mean? I just said you had nice hair, and like I had to learn. Like I didn't know, and people gave me their time. There was people that believed in me, Billy, right? Because I didn't believe in myself, and they really worked with me. And I will say their names because they're people that have really helped me out. Steve Wood, Tracy Vallis, Michael John. These are the people that have really, Oliver McMahon, that have really helped me move forward in my life to believe in myself when I didn't believe in myself, and that I wasn't just an addict. I wasn't just somebody that fucked up. They really gave me that shot, and I worked my way through every area in addiction. And I went through leadership management courses, and I've become teachable. And then I got a taste, and I thought, I want to learn more. So then I went to night school, and I'm working now. I'm going to night school. And I became a qualified counsellor psychotherapist, and addiction was a specialist area. And I'd work with anxiety, and I'd work with couples, and I was like, wow, like this is amazing. And I've gone through this whole journey. Then I went and trained as a sex addiction therapist, working on compulsive behaviour and porn and sex addiction, and hypnotherapy and unconscious mind work. And I thought, wow, like this is really possible. I've found a new passion. And so that's what I do. And I absolutely love the work that I do. It doesn't mean that I stop working on myself. And so that become the way that I am. And now I'm working in the NHS, and I manage the mental health service for child and adolescent mental health service for the whole of Essex, and it's amazing. It's
brilliant.
It's one of us is doing that, and I've never divulged that I'm in recovery in any of those interviews. Whether that's right or wrong, it's irrelevant. I never felt it was right, but this was the first time I actually told them. And it was because of a question they had, was from the youth. We've got a question here from one of the youths, and they would like to know what makes you different from everybody else, and why should you be the person. I thought, I got to get real. Just be honest and let them know. This is where I've been. It doesn't mean I'd say I know what they're feeling. I know how I felt, and I know how you can turn your life around with people that believe in you if you give them that chance. And that's kind of been my experience, really. And as a result, like you, Billy, I've got a family. My wife's never seen me use. I'm married. I've got an 8-year-old daughter. She's never seen me use. I pay bills. I don't want to. Don't get me wrong. All right. There's always that. But
I had to fucking pay a big one the other day.
Right, there we are. But it's become not normal. I don't want to say the word normal, but sometimes I guess there's that little bit that says
ordinary. In a sense of I don't know, a sense of probably like just. Yeah, it's a fucking hard one to put down, innit? What we've become.
Become a productive member of society. I think that puts it down right. I've literally become a person that I kind of hoped I could be. When you get your parents saying that they don't worry about you anymore, and when you look in the mirror and don't feel like a piece of shit anymore, or when you're sitting in front of someone and they say thank you for helping me, that all that feeds my soul. It just feeds me. Coming up here with you today, I've got Nick on the phone. Said, "Do you want to come up? We haven't seen each other for a while." We went a bit
of a road trip.
It was just nice, it was just nice. It was that connection, and that's what I realised I was missing, was connection. Don't get me wrong, there were moments to connect, but I didn't feel like I could connect. But now I can look you in the eye, have that conversation. As I said to you before we started, I've watched some of your podcasts and some of the guests that you've had on there, and there's that little bit in the head that says, "Oh, you can't go on that podcast.
No,
like, you've not done this wonderful criminality stuff, or done some real chaos and been in the trenches in like Afghanistan or something." Like that's still that little self-worth bit that goes, "You're not good enough." But luckily that's quieter today, and I can go, "Fuck off."
You know what? I was actually kind of looking forward to this, because it was like, I remember like because when I spoke to you, I was thinking about me when I was in front of you, right? I didn't think I'd ever get to a point again of like just being okay with myself. And actually sitting here, almost 6 years later, is like, fucking hell, it's amazing. It's like it's a miracle, because I didn't expect to get past that stage in my life, and I am, and now I can actually speak to you on a friendly basis, with the relationship where it's like, it's not like I don't feel inferior to someone, because I always felt like, I remember speaking to like the counsellor I had. She was lovely at the time, you know, got on really well with her, but there's a part of me was like really I fucking know more than her. You know what I mean? What can she tell me? You know, and I go in and I don't want to fucking talk about me. I've done that years ago, and all I need is, but you need to, but I fucking goes, and I was very like reluctant to like delve back into stuff that I'd already dealt with, especially when you've gone through the work. You know where you're at, and a part of you knows that you know what you need to do, and you don't need to go any further in that area. And trying to explain that, and we're doing all this like DBT, and it was like, fucking hell, it's a difference. What's this? Dialectical behaviour therapy, and you know,
so they used to use that. They used to use that a lot for self-harm and personality disorder. But then the Americans started to realise that it can really work with addiction, and it's brilliant. I mean, these are all of these.
It's all mindfulness stuff, weren't it?
And it's all regurgitated, but they're all tools, necessary tools. But let me tell you, this is all psychotherapy stuff. The real freedom I find now is I do a lot of unconscious work, because a lot of the stuff we're going through in the mind and the brain is unconscious. And so I do a lot of work around the unconscious, because it's, for example, you get robbed on a bus, right? Next time you see a bus, you start to have a panic attack. Well, cognitively, consciously, I'm not on that same bus, I'm not being robbed, but you're freaking out. The body goes, no,
crisis,
right? And you're having that freak, and your brain's kicking in, and all that kind of stuff, right? So unconscious work is it's the unconscious impactful feeling of the past that kicks in, that overrides that cognitive thought. It's so impactful that then the cognitive thought goes, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I can't do that. Then you feel a certain way and behave a certain way. So I work with a lot of that through trauma and phobias, anxiety, and a lot of it is to do with I was telling Nick about it. I was going to sound a bit intelligent for a moment, if I may, Billy. It's called the reticular activating system, right? And basically, that's your filter in your brain. And I think what a lot of us do is we focus on what we don't want rather than what we do want, right? Yeah. I'll give you an example, because I know you like boxing and stuff, right? Tyson Fury, when he spoke about his mental health and wanted to drive into a wall, and the only thing that pulled him out with his kids, right? He was focusing on what he didn't want. What he was focusing on, I mean, I don't know his story. I don't know until he actually tells me, unless I meet him. But from what I see and what I've heard, it sounded to me that, you know, he spent so much time focusing on being champion. When he achieved it, he didn't think about what's next and what he wanted next. He was thinking, oh, I don't know what to do now. I haven't got focusing on what he doesn't want. So what I work with a lot of people unconsciously is once I do the removal work, which psychotherapy can take a long time to do. Sometimes a lot of people say, look, I just feel traumatized, keep talking about it. So the unconscious stuff is we remove the impactful feelings through the tools that I've learned and how we do it, and it can be quite quick. But then you show them how to visualize the future, how to retrain that brain, how to program the mind to go to that place and focus on what you want. And that's what I do every day, you know. And I do that because I've learnt this new way of living, and I swear to you, it's the best thing I've ever learned. And I learnt this because my mate was 36 and he died of a sudden heart attack, Jeremy, and it's his anniversary soon. And the last thing he said to me before he died is, you need to go and train in some of this other stuff. And I was like, no, you need to go to Clubhouse. I was like, no. And by doing that, it's opened up a whole new world, and I've learned new stuff. So I honour his memory with that, and I'll never forget him for saying he was quite an outspoken guy, and I continue, and it blows me away. What I'm trying to say is I'm teachable still. I'm open. I don't get it twisted just because I'm in recovery. I'm 16 and a half years clean. I'm quite successful in what I do. I know my craft. I know what I'm doing, but I'm always open to be taught. I don't know it all. I'm still teachable. Like, we was having a conversation about the brain, and he's going to be pissed I'm not talking about the brain today, because he was like, you need to talk about this. I don't feel confident enough to talk too much in detail, but there was stuff about the brain that was really fascinating, and the stuff I have learned, I teach clients. When you work with me, I educate you. I don't just listen to your feelings. I educate you, and so you learn. And I'm open to learn continually now. So what I'm saying is, in a long-winded way, is I thought it was just about learning how to use drugs properly. Put down the drugs, learn that I am worthy, I am lovable, I can be teachable, I can grow, I can become whoever I want to become. Limitless belief, not limiting beliefs. And by putting in the work and being around the people that, you know, dance in my light, not shine on my dark, I learned that I've got something to give, I've got something to grow, I've got something to take. And now I'm just going to continue that formula. I haven't learned it all. And same with you. Keep going, keep growing. And life is about experience. There is some rough with the smooth. There's some shit things that go on. Believe me, I've experienced enough pain in recovery, more than when I was using. But that's life, unfortunately. It doesn't promise us freedom from life on life's terms, right? But I'm in it. I'm living. My friend isn't here anymore. I am. What am I going to do? I'm going to go and fucking live my life. I'm going to do what I need to do that's going to help other people in the right way, with the right motive, and just enjoy being a family man and just do what I want to do that's going to nourish my soul. And that sounds cliche, but that's how I genuinely feel. And people have taught me to unlock that. Yeah. It's in us all, man. All we want as humans is to connect and love, really. Everyone wants to be loved. Yeah. If every child was told, I love you and you're really lovable.
It's mad, and it's fucking crazy, because we have got like a gift, right, in a sense of like, we get like this awareness, this understanding, like this different outlook. We've lived, for me anyway, and I can speak for myself, I've lived this way of life in the past, you know, and then it gets into recovery and I get this new way of living. That's what they call it, a new way of living, right? A new way of life. And I remember in Thailand, I was in Chiang Mai, and there was this big, tall English kid. He was going to these meetings, and he stood in front of me and he said, "You know what, Bill, right?" He was like Yoda with all his, you know, like fucking, you know, Rolling Stones and Gather Moss and all that stuff. He said to me, you know what, Bill, he said, "You know, I'm not the man I used to be." You know, he said, "I'm not the man I could be. I'm not the man I should be." He said, "I'm not the man I want to be." He said, "But I thank God I'm not the man I used to be." Right? Fucking hell. It's fucking around the garden just to get to that. But like, it's like, you're not that one, you're not this one. You could be, you should be, you would be, but I'm not. Right? So I'm all them, but I'm not what I was. Right? So I can grow from that. Right? And you remind me of my first counsellor, Dave Mack. I don't know if you've ever met him or heard of him, but like, you might have known him. Nick knows him. But Dave Mack, he looks similar as well, doesn't he, Nick?
Davey Mack.
I
look like Davey Mack.
Sadly, he passed away, killed himself, and he was about 6. I think he must have been about 20 years in recovery at the time. But he's like, he gets to a stage where I'd put him on a fucking pedestal because he was my first, and at the time, you know, and then he went on his journey, and whatever happened. Because I believe he put a few things down, you know, and other things come in front of him that become a little bit more important. And that's something that like we can't do, because this, like, we this is a serious fucking business. This, you know, saving your own life, because by saving your own life, you know, you're saving the lives of fucking your family and friends. You know, and that's what I like. What you've just shared, all that stuff about the brain and how it operates. You know, because our problem is centered between our shoulders. It's not fucking outside. It's not. I always used to think, like you said from the beginning, the vacuum, something was missing. There was an hole. We'll fill it with all kinds. You know, the sex, the fucking money, the shopping, the clothes. If you look fucking a certain type of fucking, you know, people won't judge you. So, you know, I'd judge people on the trainees they wore. I'd go to jail and look at the shoes and go, "Man, he's a wall him. He's a dickhead. Get on them pumps there." Right now, I'll have it with people with fucking maroon jackets.
That's right, brother.
Jumpers, fucking Rupert the Bear Keks, the lot, lad. Like years ago, wouldn't
Hey, like, fucking steady on there, lad. Rupert the Bear Keks. Fucking hell, he's brutal.
I'm going to get them on fucking camera.
Right, alright, I'll have to call the boys.
No, so you, right, not being judgmental here, right? I'm just saying,
yeah,
but it would have been.
Not much in a bit. Yeah, sure.
But Tanner, that's the way I was.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
If you didn't have the fucking North Face hoodie or the... then you weren't it, you know. Yeah. And that's what I say to these young kids today that I speak to. I said, look, the people who dress differently and look differently are fucking probably the best people in your life, right? The ones that you're going to start like orientating to or gravitating to, the ones that are wearing all them dark clothing, standing on street corners, talking out the side of the mouth, you know, fucking judging every fucking Tom, Dick and Harry that's walking past, and just being fucking artist. I said, that's the life, you know. It says in it, you know, show me your friends. James English just this. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. But yeah, it's true, isn't it?
No, it's absolutely true.
Show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Just on the Rupert the Bear though.
Come on, stand up with them Keks.
Fuck off.
My missus is going to be buzzing off this.
There's no holes in these shoes. Listen,
yeah.
I didn't wash. I didn't spend any money on anything.
Yeah.
And the amends I made myself was going to take a pride. You know, on a serious
you
note,
look well, lad.
But I take a pride in my appearance today. And I don't care how flamboyant it might be or whatever, how I'm feeling, that's how it is. That's amends I made myself 16 years ago, and I still continue that to this day.
Brilliant.
Even the tracky's got to be a bit nice, so it's just the way it is. It's an amends I made myself, and it makes me feel good, and that's okay, and
it suits you, it makes you look cool.
And I feel, it is how it is, isn't it? But the thing you said there about the recovery side, when that guy went full circle to explain himself, someone told me, and I really like it, so I could have said I nicked it, it was mine, but I won't nick it. He told me, he said, yesterday I recovered, today I'm recovering, but I'll always be in recovery. Because there was always that conversation about you sorted, cured, what, and I really like that, and I thought it keeps it nice and simple. Yesterday I recovered, today I'm recovering, but I'll always be in recovery. And so therefore, like, sadly, when your first therapist and he went, this stuff is serious. It takes people out of the game, and I've seen it. It's serious, and I fucked around with it for a long time. But if I stay on the path, if I follow this stuff, if I really dig deep and get honest and follow the principles and really listen to the things that I've been shown and really work for it, I know that I will just continue on that path. Yeah. We're all going to get those moments. We're always going to be faced with difficulties. But I just know that the coping mechanism of that is destructive. It's not going to change, that survival mechanism of pleasure and survival. We were talking about the brain earlier and how eventually with addiction that part of the midbrain decides, I've remembered it, Nick, that the part of the midbrain starts to communicate and understand that pleasure is survival is pleasure, and this is the overriding obsessive thought to change the way that we feel, right? We're not listening to the frontal cortex that's telling you, maybe you shouldn't use it, it's not going to help you today, but it's not being listened to anymore, and there's loads of stuff on the brain. Look it up, there's loads of stuff about the brain. There's not enough time to go into it, but I've learned so much. But if I continue, there's no reason why I need to pick up ever again. It doesn't mean to say I won't. There's no reason why I need to pick up again. And being connected with people that have been through hardship and my own journey, and they get through it, that gives me hope, that gives me strength, that gives me that, okay, yeah, maybe I can, it's not going to change the way I am. And I face this stuff today, I face these things today. It is possible for anyone, whether you're on the street, whether you're in high society, whether you're in a prison cell, whether you're unemployed, paying tax, it doesn't matter, it doesn't discriminate. I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, it doesn't care. So the solution is there for all of us. And the way is like this, connecting. Talk to everyone and anyone. That's what I do, absolutely. So definitely, I'm very, very passionate about it, as you can tell. I can tell. Because it's allowed me to go and grab a life. I do remember that. I came and I thought, I'm going to go and grab a life. Because I didn't have a fucking life. I always think of, because I'm quite dramatic sometimes and theatrical, I always think about Al Pacino, in that movie. What life? I got no fucking life. And I was like, yes. That's how I felt. And I'm like, I'm going to go and grab that life. I don't have to be blinded to not see what's in front of me, and so that's the journey I'm on, man, and it's been a pleasure to come up today. Brilliant. And I really appreciate it. Right,
brilliant. And we come to the end now, so but what I always ask every guest, right, every guest at the end of every podcast, right, Tanner, is a pearl of wisdom, because it always goes on the back burner. What would you say, right, to a young Tanner Hassan walking through the doors of life? If you saw yourself, like at that young age where you're quite vulnerable, like you're most vulnerable, and you had an opportunity to say something to you, what would you tell yourself? What bit of advice or guidance would you?
Stop pleasing others. Yeah. Stop focusing on how important he thinks of you or she thinks of you.
Pride.
Turn it back. It matters what I think of me. It's not my business what others think of me. I spend too much time for old bosses. Oh no, I upset that one. Oh no, all that kind of stuff. It really mattered what everyone thought.
For whom?
And it was knackering. And that knocked my confidence, my self-belief, the limiting beliefs, confirmed that filter. Oh, maybe they are right. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I am stupid. So the filter's thinking about that and it's looking for information that confirms that I am stupid. Nah. When I put my head on that pillow, if I can sleep well knowing that I've done the best that I can that day without trying to hurt anyone intentionally, that's a win. Not focusing on what you're doing over there. You know, I don't care what psychotherapist is doing over there. I don't care. I don't talk to many psychotherapists. I ain't interested in what you're doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay. Especially all the socials and these last minute coaches that suddenly they're a coach and they can help you. And that's all good. God bless you. Yeah. But I'm seeing the other side where I'm having to pick up the pieces where you don't know what you're doing. It takes time to shape your craft. And so I just keep looking at me, keep learning, keep shaping my craft. And I would say young person, younger me, it don't matter what they think. It does. I know it does. And I'll be lying if I say I don't ever get that thought, because we want to survive and fit in, right, and connect, I get that. But the obsessive amount, just telling that little one that just focus on what you're doing. You'll be all right. Focus on what you're doing. Keep coming back. Keep sharing. Recovery, mate. Fucking have it. That's what I say.
With that, thank you very much for coming on.
Mate. Thank you very much for having me.